It's a Locked On Cavs, Locked On Magic crossover today. Let's get ready for the first round of the NBA playoffs on today's show.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Philip Rossman-Reich, let's dive into this. We're going to go through this Cavs Magic series. Pretty structured here. Segment 1, how Cleveland could win the series. Segment 2, how the Magic could get it done. And segment 3, it'll be prediction time. We'll get into some real predictions, maybe some X factors as well. I want to say this one line on how Cleveland wins this. Donovan Mitchell is great and healthy. And I think it's not the whole thing. There's other things that have to go right, but nothing is possible unless Donovan's really good and looks like the best version of him.
Yeah, I mean, it's the old saying that the team with the best player in the series probably has the best chance to win. And you know, I know some Magic fans will be shouting like Paolo Banchero is an all-star too, and he was. He's a good player. Donovan Mitchell is a guy that's proven. Jalen Suggs could play, an all-defensive player could play the best defense in his life, and Donovan Mitchell could still be someone that averages 30 in the series against him. That's the reputation Donovan Mitchell has as a playoff performer. And so much of what Cleveland does, because where Cleveland, I think, has an advantage over Orlando is with their guard play. So much of what Cleveland is going to try and do in this series is going to depend on them being able to get execution and get shot making from their guards to force Orlando to double team and to leave the paint a little bit. That's going to be, I think, a huge factor in this series. And so, yeah, I agree. Like, Cleveland's hopes of winning starts with Donovan Mitchell and his health.
There's also just a lot that's going to be thrown at Mitchell, I think, in this series. You know, he, number one, for his aura as a star, he's coming off of 2 bad playoffs back-to-back. I think this series could look a lot like last year with what the Knicks did, and it's maybe not the same exact look just because Jalen Suggs is a little bit different and Jonathan Isaac is a little bit different. And Phil, I would ask you this, like, I think Suggs, when we saw it a little bit in the regular season, I think when Mitchell was at his best, that was a hard matchup for Suggs. I think it didn't. I love Jalen Suggs. We were texting about this when we started booking this. I love him despite the fact that his shooting is a little iffy right now, but I love the way that guy plays defense. I think the answer, like, can you get Jonathan Isaac up to 25 minutes and he defends Mitchell? Like, that's one of those things where if that happens, I'm like, okay, I don't. As good as Mitchell is, that's where I get it's a little nervy time, I think, if you're Cleveland, if it trends that way.
Yeah, the Magic's whole deal is they're big. I mean, and Cleveland's whole deal is they're big too. But Orlando's whole deal is they have a lot of bodies that they're willing to throw at anyone and to trust them defensively. Like, will they switch? I honestly, I foresee lineups where the Magic go super big and they play Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, and Jonathan Isaac all together. And that could be a lineup where Jonathan Isaac's playing some center, although I don't love that in this particular matchup with the size that Cleveland has on the interior and the skill that Cleveland has on the interior. But I could see them doing that and leaving Franz Wagner as the 2 guarding a Donovan Mitchell or guarding a Darius Garland. And while Franz doesn't have maybe the shiftiness to stay with them, he's not afraid to take a bump. He's not afraid to kind of body up a guy. And as much as we love talking about Jalen Suggs and his defense is awesome. And I think, when I look back at some of the plays from this past season when Suggs was guarding Mitchell, he struggled a little bit getting around screens. And I think that was how they sprung Mitchell open. They sprung him open a lot in transition. Putting some size on Donovan Mitchell could go a long way to slowing him down too, by just forcing him to stay on the perimeter. You talk about how the Cavs win this series. I think a lot of it comes down to shooting, and a lot of it comes down to Cleveland's ability to create 3-pointers, force the Magic's defense to collapse, and the Magic trying to just kind of keep those guards on the perimeter. If they hit some of those tough step backs, they hit some of those shots over tough defense, they'll probably live with it. And again, Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, when he's going, are good enough to make those shots and make those shots, fairly regularly. But to me, I think the Magic are going to be trying to keep those guys on the perimeter and let their bigs and their paint guys deal with the paint.
Darius Garland hasn't had it really much this season, so we'll see where that goes. This isn't even the second most important guy to me, Philip, in the series, but you know who I think is really going to matter for Cleveland? And if he plays 20 minutes a game, I rate Cleveland's chances of winning better. Can you? It's a role guy. Can you guess on who I'm thinking of here in terms of 3-point shooting?
I mean, I think like Isaac Okoro is like the swing guy.
Oh.
Like if he's
Well,
if
well,
he's well, because like
deeper.
his defense is so good, but
Yes.
it's it's the same question that you have about 15 guys on the Magic, and that's their whole roster. Is if he's not making shots, then you can ignore him a little bit on offense. And like Okoro's a decent shooter, but the rap on Okoro is his defense really helps, and he can play a little bit bigger than his height. Because when I look at this matchup, I think that okay, Evan Mobley can only guard one of Paolo Banchero or Franz Wagner. So the Magic should attack with whoever Evan Mobley's not guarding. And so, if it's, Max Strus, I think is a better defender than people give him credit for. And he's a great shooter. But I don't think the Magic are be afraid to attack Max Strus off the dribble or put Max Strus in pick and roll actions. Isaac Okoro is maybe someone that they might struggle to spring their guys free on a little bit more because he's a significantly better defender. But if he can't shoot, then that's a win for the Magic because, my whole X factor in this series, and I think how Cleveland won those 2 games that they won this season, they made a lot of shots and Orlando didn't make a lot of shots. And so that's going to be, I think, the struggle for Orlando is how to like rein in any shooting, rein in the shooting deficit. That's been the struggle all year for them.
The guy that I was going for is Sam Merrill.
Okay. And I don't want to talk about him. I don't want to talk about him.
Here's the thing. I don't know if it is a vastly open question if JB Bickerstaff trusts him enough defensively. It is comfortable enough with him to play him. And I think to your point about putting guys in pick and rolls and stuff, could absolutely see a world where Franz and Paolo just look at this guy who plays tough, and they just say, "Here's this small little guard. We're gonna bully him, and
the Magic will screen with their guards. They will have Cole Anthony set a screen. They'll have Markel Fultz set a screen. Like the Magic invert pick and rolls all the time to find those matchups.
Yeah, and if they do that, that's a problem for Merrill. We'll have to see how he handles it. But his shooting and his movement shooting is a skill no one else on this team has. It's great with Mitchell. It's great off the 2 bigs. It's great if on a night where like Niang doesn't have it or Okoro doesn't have it or whatever. Strus, for his reputation, like isn't like a great shooter. He's just like an average shooter with a pretty well-rounded skill set. Merrill's your one like elite shooter. I think there's a world where he is a real X factor in the series. Other stuff has to go right first. Like Darius Garland has to play well. Evan Mobley needs to play well. Like Mitchell needs to be healthy. Mitchell says he's 100%. I will see it when we believe it over a 7-game series. He can say that all he wants. I need to see it.
Everyone's healthy till they get hit.
Everyone's healthy until like after when they're doing exit interviews, and he's like, "Actually, my kne's bad. I'm having surgery in 2 weeks." I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but like that's how this works. They're never fully honest, even when they say they're being honest. That's the nature of this business. Sam Merrill is like, again, not number 1 X factor, not number 2, but he's like 3 or 4. And if he plays 20 minutes a game certain nights, I'd be like, sure, I think Cleveland's chances of winning are higher if he actually gets some run.
That January game still gives me nightmares. Like when this matchup was announced as the matchup, or it was clear that this was going to be the matchup Sunday afternoon, like I was in the same seat I was sitting in for that game in January at the Kia Center. Like that game still gives me nightmares. And like I said, I think there's going to be a lot of different aspects to this series. And like Donovan Mitchell's got to play well. Paolo and Franz in their first playoffs, but like. To me, like this series turns on 3-point shooting. That's what it felt like every game in the season series turned on. And look, both teams weren't fully healthy for any one of those 4 games. You could qualify every single one of those games. So I don't know how much we can take from the season series games, from the games in the regular season, but each one of those games turned on shooting. Orlando was 2 for 23 in that first game in December. Sam Merrill had 8 threes in that game in January. Magic fared a lot better from 3 in their 2 wins. You hate to say it because you want something more complex that you can talk about, but this series, this series might come down to who shoots better, and you certainly trust them to shoot a little bit better than Orlando does.
I think particularly if Merrill plays, we will see.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Coming up after this, we're going to get to the Orlando side of this series. How Orlando could win this series from the word Locked On's #1 Orlando Magic expert. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I got to tell you, I have a competition. And look, we've all been there with competition. Either as a player or a fan. It's halftime and the scoreboard is not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure how your team can pull out a win. That's when you dig deep, lift up your head, and say to yourself, time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much of my friend's money as I can. That's right, the smash hit Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime and with tons of new twists, including leaderboards, to compare your progress to your buddies. There's so much to do. Play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards, make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball, charge other players rent for iconic properties, and more. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments you get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google. Philip, how does Orlando beat Cleveland?
Make shots simple as that. No, more complicated. I think the 3-point thing is like the big thing that I'm focused on. I think most Magic fans will tell you that is the big weakness and the big thing that everyone's worried about. But I've said throughout the course of the season, for the Orlando Magic, it's win the paint, win the game. It's scoring in the paint. It's putting pressure on the rim. It's defending the paint well. This is where a lot of games are decided for Orlando. And I think that's going to be one of the tough things for Orlando to figure out in the series is, okay, how do we get Jared Allen to clear the paint and allow us to get to the basket? How do we get Evan Mobley out of the lane? Or how do we kind of put Evan Mobley in the corner so he's not roaming around and blocking shots or being a factor in the paint? To me, that's where a lot of this series is going to be won. Orlando wants to put pressure on the rim. They want to get to the foul line. They want to kind of force you to collapse around them and then see if they can kick out or finish around the basket. And then they want to defend and congest your space in the paint. To me, 3-point shooting is going to be really important, but every 3-point shot sprouts off of a paint touch for Orlando, at least. Maybe not for Cleveland as much with the way Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland can pull up. To me, we talked about it with the Magic today. You can't be so in your head about adjustments. You got to be who you are. This is who the Magic are. And again, it plays right into Cleveland's hands. They're a very good paint team on both sides of the ball. The Magic have to win the paint to win this series.
Here's the thing with Cleveland, I think, right now, though, Philip. Like, they just haven't been good defensively in a couple weeks. Like, they haven't. And you could say that's injuries. You could say that's just like a lack of rhythm. It's just been a bad defensive team where I don't know if they're quite at the level you would hope. Like, statistically for the year, still pretty good. These are two of the better defenses in the league for the whole entire year. Cleaning the Glass has them. Orlando is second. Cleveland is sixth.
We are expecting a rock fight here. Like if you like points, you are in the wrong series.
Yeah, we're looking at like 96 to 94.
I am fully expecting at least one game to not hit 100 points. Like I'm fully expecting that.
Yeah.
100 points. But I think the over under for Saturday is like 204, 207, something like that.
That's a tempting under.
Yeah, it's very tempting under. Especially for a 1 p.m. start.
Yeah, 1 p.m. start. That's like a weird time for NBA players who are notorious night owls and they stay up late and do stuff. Cavs over the last 2 weeks, 25th in defense.
Magic not much better though.
No, but like it's like a vibe check, right? Like Orlando over that stretch is 16th. They're close to league average. They're like exactly. They're 16th, a point worse than league average. Cleveland's like well below league average over that stretch. It's like I think there's like I want to see game one, Philip, like Paolo getting downhill, Franz getting downhill, and I think we're gonna know early like what Cleveland's up for in that capacity. Like, and if this goes like a certain way early, I really wonder how the Cavs like mentally handle struggling in that department. Like, I think that could swing the series in a real way. Yeah, and it's I think we'll maybe talk more about this when we kind of bring all the ties together. But like, there's just a lot of questions about this Magic team, and they're not bad questions. They're not like things that are like, oh, this is a fatal. I mean, the shooting's a fatal flaw, and like I said, I think so much of this series, because the Magic are such a low volume shooting team, they'll average 30, 31 threes per game and make 10 if they're lucky. Maybe, if they make 10, they're probably doing okay. This is not a team that's going to shoot a very high percentage from three. And, we've been waiting all year to say the Magic don't have shooting. When we get to the playoffs,
teams are just going to put 5 feet, at least 5 feet in the paint and dare even good shooters to shoot. Like the Magic's good shooters don't shoot enough or shoot well enough to make teams really care. Like they're going to need a game where Gary Harris hits 2 or 3 threes. And, he sometimes struggles to get 3 shots up in a game. He's their designated 3-point shooter and he'll go 1 for 5. And that's just kind of how it is. The Magic, to me, so much of this series is going to be make or miss shots. And, we might be sitting here, I remember after the game in December, and again, I don't know how much stock we want to put into regular season games at this point, especially ones in December, but the Magic went 2 for 23 in that game. By far their worst 3-point shooting game of the season. And what was astonishing about that is that they took so few threes in this kind of modern NBA where everyone's taking 35 threes. And the other part of it is I remember going back and looking at the NBA.com data, and 19 of those 23 threes, the closest defender was 4 more feet away. And the Magic kind of said it after the game. It's like, those were good shots. We missed good shots. And it was just like, well, if you're missing good shots, that's kind of a problem when winning matters. And so, there's probably going to be a game in this series where the Magic just don't shoot well enough to compete or stay in the game. There's going to be a game in this series where the Magic shoot really well. And to me, water always finds its level. To me, like, whether the Magic are able to kind of make enough threes to stay in it is kind of the factor in whether the Magic are going to be competitive in this series. Because look, whatever Donovan Mitchell's status is, unless his leg is about to fall off, he's going to get his and he's going to make big shots. And, the Magic, we don't know, again, so many questions. We don't know how Paolo Banchero is going to react to a playoff series and the pressure that he's going to face and the defense he's going to face. We don't know how Franz Wagner is going to react to that. He's obviously struggled as a 3-point shooter this year. He's been great everywhere else, but struggles as a 3-point shooter. Honestly, really struggled against the Cavs. If I remember correctly, Evan Mobley had the primary assignment on Franz Wagner. And so that matchup to me is just so fascinating to see because Mobley is one of the few guys bigger than Franz who can move his hips and slide with him and stay in front of him. And taking that away, taking the weapon of Franz Wagner attacking downhill really gums up the Magic offense.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see how Cleveland kind of cross matches with Orlando in these cases, because I think you could see a world, Philip, where like Jared Allen's defending Jalen Suggs or something just weird. Yeah. It's just saying like whatever.
That's why Markel Fultz isn't going to play in the series. Like we all love Markel Fultz in Orlando. Like great, I mean we love the comeback story with him. He is going to be unplayable in the playoffs. Like his lack of shooting is going to hurt. And I think he'll play game 1. I think they'll try him. Jared Allen, like a lot of teams were doing in this regular season, they'll put their center on Markel Fultz and just have their center kind of roam around the paint. Just, again, getting to the paint is so important for this Magic team to get the offense kind of moving. Having the center just kind of hanging out in the paint just kills all your driving lanes.
It's how they handle it. Let me ask you one last Magic question before we get into next segment, which will be predictions, and we'll give an X factor.
Yeah.
Paolo Banchero has a super high assist percentage. So how does that happen? Like, obviously, teams made buckets, it just happens. But where do his assists come from, considering this team's lack of three-point shooting and really lack of good spots on the floor side at the rim?
Well, Paolo, like this, I mean, you'll see this when we get into the series. Paolo Banchero essentially is the point guard for this team. And it's both like exciting because, it wouldn't surprise me if he has a triple-double in the series. Like he nearly had a triple-double against the Sixers on Friday in a must-win game. He nearly had a triple-double in the must-win game against the Bucks. Like before the 40-point game that he had in Cleveland in December, I was telling people, I think Paolo's going to get a triple-double before he scores 40, which is not something I think a lot of us would have said about him in the draft process. He faces, I don't know what the exact numbers are, but he's like top 10 in the league in the percentage of times he's double teamed. And so a lot of his assists come from the fact that he's just absorbing a lot of attention every time he touches the ball. A lot of teams will send two guys at him and have a third guy in the paint to back him up because, they're not so worried about the shooting. And so Paolo has high turnover games. Like he will have a game with 4 or 5 turnovers in the series. I have no doubt about that. But he'll also have a game with 7, 8, 9, 10 assists because he's able to kind of patiently wait to see where the double's coming from. He's big enough and strong enough to spin away from it, to get away from it. And he can pinpoint passes to guys who are cutting into the open space or, if the shooters are there and they make them, to the shooters as well. So there's a lot of versatility in Paolo that I think a lot of people don't recognize, because he didn't really show that at Duke when a lot of people were watching him. But he is the team's point guard. Like, Jalen Suggs is like nominally the point guard in that starting lineup just because he's the smallest guard. But Paolo brings the ball up the floor. He sets the offense up. He runs pick and rolls as the ball handler. Like, he is this team's point guard in a lot of ways.
All right, after this, X factors, and we'll make series predictions on the record with what we think is going to happen in this series. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. We have some Cavs Magic series odds for you here. The Cavs right now are -198 to win the series versus +166 for the Magic. If you're looking at a prop about how long the series is going to go, +470 for it to be a sweep, +220 to go to 5, +200 to go 6, and +230 to go 7. FanDuel has various player props and other series bets available as well in their app. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockdown and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Philip, my #1 X factor of this series is how the Cavs deploy Evan Mobley defensively. He's going to play a big role here, and I could see a case for him defending Paolo. I could see a case for him defending Franz. But I do think his role in this series is going to be primarily in one of those guys, and I'm curious to see how JB Bickerstaff decides to deploy him and how that could alter as the series goes on.
Yeah, obviously he's going to spend a little time on both. Like, both these teams will switch enough, and you'll get cross matches, and if one guy's got the hot hand, you put Mobley on him to kind of cool him off and hope that the other guy doesn't get going. To me, that is one of the things I'm fascinated with as well, because like I said, like, Evan Mobley can only guard one of those guys. And when you think about the Magic, like, that's the one area where I think they really have an advantage is their size at the forward, their size and skill at the forward spot. They're going to be able to find a hole to attack there. Just like Cleveland, I think, understands their guards are going to be their advantage. They have guys, who can score over good defense. You're playing against a good defense. The playoffs are all about can you beat a defense that knows exactly what you're trying to do and is tailor-made to take that away. Donovan Mitchell, we know, is that kind of player. Healthy or not, he is that kind of player who can put up big numbers when called upon to do so. We don't know that about Paolo yet. I think the NCAA tournament showed us that he can be that player, but that was 2 years ago, and that's the NCAA tournament. That is not the NBA playoffs. So we're going to learn a lot about this young Magic team. For me, the guy that I'm watching really, really carefully, and the guy that I think could swing the Magic one way or the other, is Wendell Carter. And I want to know, can Wendell Carter measure up to Jared Allen? We know this is kind of a playoffs of redemption for the Cavs. They're trying to make good on missing out. Same exact situation of 4-5, against a youngish team, kind of trying to make their way in the playoffs a little bit. New York more experienced than Orlando was last year. One of the reasons that I felt Cleveland lost that series last year was their whole theory of the case, their whole theory of roster building is we're going to be bigger in a league that's going smaller. We're going to be bigger than everybody. They had Mobley, who everyone thought was just going to grade out as a center at power forward. And obviously he's versatile enough to handle that. And Jared Allen as kind of the big burly center that's kind of paint bound. And then they got worked on the glass in that series with the Knicks. This Magic team is weird. By the numbers, they're, I think, second in the league in defensive rebound rate. But against the Cavs, they grabbed fewer than 70% of their defensive rebounds. They had a really hard time rebounding against Cleveland throughout in the 4 games. Again, take that for whatever it is. Wendell Carter, the Magic have no one dominant rebounder. Wendell Carter averaged a career low in rebounds. And Wendell can be very inconsistent. Some days he looks really, really great and is tough and physical in the paint. And other times he's just kind of passive and gets pushed around a little bit and loses his positioning. And he's not an above the rim shot blocker, which I think is one of the big questions that the Magic that he faces long-term for this team. He's not an above the rim shot blocker. And so he really needs to be locked in and getting to his spots early. I think, everything comes back to shooting with the Magic. You're going to learn this very quickly. I think it's going to be like really important for Wendell Carter to hit a 3 early in the game, for the Magic to specifically set up Wendell Carter to hit a 3 early so that they can get Jared Allen out of the paint. So they can force whoever's guarding Wendell Carter, whether it's Jared Allen, whether it's Evan Mobley, whether it's whoever else, to at least respect that shot. And he's a 37% 3-point shooter, but he can go pretty cold. And, if there's another guy out there that no one's worried about as a shooter, that's one more guy, that's one more foot in the paint to prevent those drives that loosen up the defense. So to me, the interior is going to be such an important battle that, it's going to be a tug of war throughout the whole series.
I mean, I think it's entirely possible, Philip. We look back at the series, and if we're going to simplify an answer of who won, it could just be Cleveland got hotter for 7 games, or Orlando got hot.
They got hot for 4. They got hot for 4.
The Cavs in 2, 5, 6, and 7 or something just shot unconsciously from 3, right?
And the Magic can't keep up with that. That might be it. They can't this Magic team's defense is very good. They are very, very good. They're very disruptive. They're going to force some turnovers, but the way you beat them is exactly how Cleveland beat them in the 2 games that they won. You blitz them early with 3-pointers, you put them down big, and this Magic team just does not have the firepower to get themselves back in the game, especially considering this team's never been through playoff pressure before.
Yeah, not exactly like the Cavs handled pressure.
Yeah, but they Donovan Mitchell's done this. The Magic have 4 players who have played in the playoffs, period. And Joe Ingles played a lot with Donovan Mitchell, obviously with Utah. Gary Harris played for the Nuggets. The other 2 are Jonathan Isaac, who played 5 games against the Raptors in 2019, and Markel Fultz, who played 5 games against the Bucks in 2020. That's all the playoff experience the Magic have. That's it. It's like 70 games total.
All right, let's get picked. Philip, who you got?
I am taking Cavs in a solid 6. I do think the Magic are going to be able to get a couple games here. The series, probably turns on a close game somewhere where the Cavs are able to execute and the Magic aren't. And probably a game at Kia Center for that matter. I think that this is going to be a really competitive series. I think it's going to be a fairly close series. I think the Cavs experience, and I think, whether Donovan Mitchell's fully healthy or not, those guards are going to be really tough for the Magic to handle, especially if they get going. And so I think Cleveland is, for now, the better team, but I think Orlando has a strong showing that tells them what they need to do this offseason to get to that level and be in that second tier moving forward. But they're just not quite ready, and they have one too many bad games where their inexperience shows.
I'm also picking Cleveland. I'm picking them in 7.
Okay.
I will just say this. The Cavs scare me. This team has not been good. This team has had a bad start to the year, was really good when certain guys were out, and then has been bad since the All-Star break. I'm running the numbers again right now just to verify. I'm pulling post-All-Star break numbers from Cleaning the Glass. Cavs since the All-Star break. 22nd in net rating. Okay. Minus 3.6 per 100 possessions. Orlando, by comparison, 6th in net rating over that stretch.
Easy Cavs, schedule, 20th. Though. I'm just gonna. We do it, but you got to take care of your business. You got to take care of your business.
You do,
but,
you do. The Cavs, when they went on that really nice run, were playing a pancake schedule.
Yeah,
and then they lost to the Hornets recently. So
we did too. Win those games. We did too. So made Sunday way too stressful to lose that loss of the Hornets.
Yeah, it's just 20th in offense over that stretch, below league average. 23rd in defense, also below league average. They were 30th against the spread, for whatever that is worth, and they outperformed their wins by about 1. Yeah, right?
The Magic are first against the spread for all our FanDuelers out there.
Yeah, shout out. The Cavs have just not been good in a long time. And if you told me that they lost the series, I would not be surprised. Because, look, you can feel Mitchell's the best guy in the series. The Cavs should be better. They have more offensive answers. I just can't stop thinking about how blah this has been for weeks and how like blah this has been since the All-Star break and some of the real lows and what the numbers are telling me, and think that this team's like actually good. Like if they win this series, I think both the teams probably getting smoked by Boston, but I think Cleveland, it's just like you're getting shellacked. Like this team's just not really that good is where I think I've ended up, and it wouldn't shock me if the series is either A, really close, or the Cavs lose just because like the vibes are weird and they just aren't that good right now.
Yeah, I mean it nothing like look, nothing would shock me either. I'm done doubting this Magic team. I know that annoys my listeners a little bit, especially when they were losing last week. Like this Magic team is good. Like they're legitimately good. This is not some pushover team. This is a young team. I still think they're prone to a lot of mistakes. Like they're going to have a like I've kind of mapped this series out. Like there's going to be a game where Paolo scores 30 and looks like the next superstar, and there's going to be a game where he turns the ball over 7 times and has 15. There's going to be a game where the Magic turn the ball over 20 times and that costs them the game. There's going to be a game where the Cavs make a ton of threes and that they win that game. There's going to be a game where the Magic make a ton of threes and they have to win that game when that happens. To me, I trust experience. I agree. I don't like the idea that teams can turn that spigot on and off, that, you should be playing well. You should be kind of focused in and locked in, but I think that the Magic are going to need a little bit to get their sea legs under them. I think they'll win at home. I think they'll take care of their business. They're much more competitive and much more elite at home than they are on the road, and they got to find a way to win a game up at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. But I trust experience, to be perfectly honest. And this Magic team is very short on it, and we don't know how they're going to react to that big run. We don't know how they're going to react to the desperation that a playoff series brings, or whether they can reach down and find that desperation when it's going to be needed. How are they going to respond? The big thing that I wonder, and the Magic have been really good about responding to bad losses all season, but you're going to get to a playoff game. Donovan Mitchell's going to hit some crazy shot to make a 2-point game, a 5-point game, and Cleveland's going to steal that game. How does this Magic team respond? I'm sure you're wondering the same thing about Cleveland, but like, I trust that Cavs team more to know how to respond to that than a very highly emotional Magic team that's never kind of been through this before. And so it wouldn't surprise me if this should feel like a 7-game series, but the Magic drop a game somewhere that they're going to regret, and that's going to shorten the series up a little bit.
Should note, historic matchup between these teams. Philip, the last time these teams played, the only time they were in the playoffs was 2009.
Yeah, that's a good year.
Sure.
For me.
Yeah, certainly people in Cleveland still don't have very strong feelings about Hedo Turkoglu and Rashard Lewis and lots of other things in that series.
We won't talk about what happened to them after that season.
Yeah, we don't look up where Hedo Turkoglu is working now. The last
don't do that either. Yeah, that wasn't exactly what I was referring to, but yeah.
Yeah, there's other stuff as well, but that's the one that recently. I
want to prepare your listeners. If the Magic don't have Courtney Lee, who still lives in Orlando, Hedo Turkoglu, who still comes back to Orlando, not Ryan Anderson, no, he wasn't on that team. Michael Petrus, if they're not at the Kia Center for games 3 and 4,
we've done it wrong.
They've done this 35th anniversary season wrong.
Yeah, no, I need. Can you get Dwight in? Like, can just do everyone?
People were like, a couple of people were asking me about that, and I was just like, I don't know where the relationship stands between Dwight and the franchise, or between Dwight and the fans, but now would be the time if he wanted to pop in for a quick say hello.
I don't know if the Magic at the arena at the Kia Center are a Pepsi arena, but I would like to see Stan Van Gundy like courtside, like with a Diet Pepsi.
I sure hope Stan is calling Game 4. Many times we can stand back in the building, the better.
Yeah,
I believe they are a Pepsi arena, by the way.
Yeah, so look, Diet Pepsi, we can come full. We can just have everything here, and Cavs fans can just have some like weird therapy screaming at their televisions during this game. But Cavs Magic going to be, fun might be a strong word, because I think the series is going to be grimy and
if you're a masochist, if you're a basketball masochist, come on in. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, 1 p.m. Game 1 Saturday. We'll recap it here. Phil will recap it at Locked On Magic. Philip, it's great to talk to you, my man. I'm looking forward to dive into the series and see where this goes.
Should be a good time. Hope to talk to you soon.